Hey, so I wanted to do a video about why I went to the protest march for Black Lives Matter. I posted up some pictures on Instagram, and there's been a lot of kind of discussion, a lot of anger, and a lot of people kind of, you know, being very vocal about their opinions, which is of course fine. I'm in two minds as to whether to sort of put the comments on under this video or not. I'm very happy to have discussions about all of these things, but I just feel that maybe everyone's it's such a kind of hot issue right at the moment that it's hard to kind of get people to talk about it calmly, but I'm up for debate always, and we should always be up for debate, you know. But yeah, so I wanted to just sort of personally talk about like why I went, you know, in the middle of a global pandemic, why I'd put people at risk and things like that. These are some of the things that people have been saying to me. So I think there are very few moments in history where you can actually really affect big change. These moments don't come along very often, and they are usually sort of the result of a few things converging at the same time. And I would say that things would not have ignited in quite such a large scale, in such a large way, had, you know, this sort of pandemic not been on. It's affected how everyone's kind of viewed it as well. And I feel that because there are so few moments in history where you really feel like your physical presence in a location at a certain point could actually stop things being completely crap and shit for somebody, that I felt like it was my duty to go. Obviously it's not an ideal situation. Obviously, you know, there are still lockdown rules are on the go. The organisers did their very best to educate and inform and help people and hand out masks, and everyone was wearing masks. Well, the large majority of people that I saw were wearing masks. We were trying to observe social distancing. It became difficult when we were sort of penned through a gate by the police, so in the end it ended up being like we were all kind of smushed together, and that's not ideal. But that wasn't really, like, once you're kind of penned into that situation, you can't really, it's difficult to get out. So I think, you know, the mad kind of people becoming a little bit hysterical about, well, I think it's also just like the judgment that no one was taking any care at all. Like, we went there with this completely cavalier attitude of like, hey everybody, kiss me on the mouth, fuck COVID. No, obviously not. Everyone was trying to make the best that they could within that situation, because people feel like it's an actual moment for change. There are so few of these moments. So few. Think about all the protest marches that happened before and absolutely bugger all changes. I mean, personally speaking, I remember 2003, Tony Blair, you know, the anti-war like marches against the war in like Afghanistan, you know, what was it, like over a million? I can't remember the exact numbers of people who came out to say they didn't want to go to war, and the politicians just did whatever they wanted to do. They were like, well, we've made this decision, don't really care what you think. When you think about the amount of people who marched then, you know. And I felt like for my generation, literally everyone's interest in politics, their little light, their little spark of debate, passion, interest in making this world a better place, literally, it didn't just get switched off like someone nicked the bulb, you know? Because we just got to the point where we're like, well, actually, what is the point of anything? What is the point of voting? What is the point of marching? What is the point of anything? If that many people can come out and march and say, we are not okay with this, and then the politicians are just like, well, we're gonna do it anyway. What's the point? You literally saw an entire generation of people's interest in politics and engagement in politics disappear in the blink of an eye. And I think after that, don't get me wrong, there were still some people who fought the good fight. And I have to say I mean, that was one reason. I mean, I used to be very political growing up, and then I think having depression, like blah blah blah, don't want to get into like a sob story, whatever, but like there were certain things that kind of trigger me, and I felt like, because my life felt like a daily struggle, there was so much energy I had. It was fine. I had to focus on literally the loudest thing in the entire world. I had to focus on trying to keep myself healthy, and that felt like such a struggle that I couldn't get involved in too many other things, because just getting out of bed sometimes or managing to do a working day was just exhausting, right? And whilst that is true, and it still is true to a certain degree, I think it also became a point for me that it was just like I became quite blinkered in that thinking. Don't get me wrong, I was still going and voting. I would never not do that, but it just meant that I was less active and involved than I wanted to be. I think I'm just a bit too emo, and I feel a lot. I feel like I'm quite empathetic, and I was thinking the other day about how I didn't feel a lot of empathy anymore, and I think it's because I actually made a kind of choice to turn it all off, because it was too much. It was too painful to see. Oh my god, what's wrong with me? I'm so sorry. It's too painful for me to look at the world sometimes, so I just felt like I kind of switched all these things off so I could just actually function as a basic human. And then moving forward to now, I mean, moving forward to now, like if you think about it, there's been like the Me Too movement, which actually created change for women. You know, Harvey Weinstein, see ya. It actually changed people's opinions, and like finally, as women, our voices were being heard. There was a huge shift, you know. And you know, in some ways I was involved in that in a tiny little, the smallest capacity possible. You know, I'd done like a blog about it. I did like a little talk about it. Like I, you know, did all these like little things that I thought could affect change in like a really small way. And I was like, that's my little battle. That's the one I'll fight, because I can deal with that. I can manage that. And you know, there's pluses and minuses to that, you know. Life isn't blinkered in that way, but I felt like it was what I needed to do to sort of maintain balance in my head and in my life and stuff like that. But I think then moving forward to today and feeling that, oh yeah, so this is one of the things I would talk about when it came to kind of sexism, misogyny. I would always say about how not feeding the trolls and, you know, being silent was a shit female superpower, and we should all kind of speak up and say something, because like being silent has just created this horrible world online where the void is filled with these horrible loud voices of people who are just downright misogynists, you know. And I felt very much that was true, and I fully believe that, and yet I never applied that same thing to racism in the same way. I didn't, and it's the same. Silence is compliance, you know. By not speaking up and not getting involved and not shouting out and not helping move it forward, the lack of your voice means there's space for the voice of someone else, and who knows what they think or what agenda they have. And then when all the, like the video of George, just I can't even it's so powerful in my head when I think of it, that I was just like, what the fuck am I even doing? What am I doing? How can I? Like, I feel that responsibility, because I wasn't fighting for someone else. I was fighting only for something that directly affected me. And life shouldn't be about that. And I'm not saying that we need to fight every battle, because nobody can. But this is kind of a big one. You know, this affects a fucking shitload of people and has done for ages. And you've seen the amount of times, like, try and try again to make it better, to challenge this systemic racism that's like emblazoned and rooted within the systems and in us. We're all brainwashed to a degree, you know, like we behave in a certain way and we don't even know we're doing it because it's an unconscious thing. And then, yeah, I just felt like all of these big things are happening at this moment, and if I don't stand up and make my voice heard, and if I don't go out and show my solidarity, it's moments pass and I will not fucking have it be the same thing over and over again. These like attempts where it's just ignored, you know. This is the time. This is the time right now to make that actually like a permanent change for the better. And it's everybody's responsibility, because all the time before where I wasn't getting involved and I should have been, it's your duty now to rectify that wrong. That's how I feel. And whilst, you know, it's the middle of a global pandemic, it's not ideal, everyone's gonna go and like infect everybody in the whole world, okay, all right, I hear you. It's not ideal. It's not an ideal time, but moments are few and fleeting where things converge in such a way that we could change the course of history forever. To really change it. Sorry, I spoke so long that I ran out of memory on my memory card. This is just sort of the reasons and my logic behind why I felt it was really important for me to go. Obviously, there will be conflicting and differing opinions out there, and that's okay. I fully understand that, and I fully understand that a lot of people are really worried and scared about what's happening with the pandemic, and I hear you on that. It's not ideal. Of course it's not ideal. But like I said, there are only a few moments in history where you can really, really affect change, and it's just, for me, this is one of those moments, and I can't ignore that, you know. And of course, the protests themselves, there are always problems at protests. There are people who go there with specific agendas to undermine things. So please don't just pick out moments from that to undermine the main message of what's happening, because that's not fair to everyone else who went there and who was peacefully protesting and just wanted to have their voice heard. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I feel really hopeful, you know. I feel genuinely really hopeful, like we can actually affect some change, you know. And I hope that you guys feel that way too. And I'm not saying that going to a protest is the right thing to do for everybody. It may well not be, but I'm just coming from sort of my perspective on why I felt there was almost like no choice in my head in terms of going. You know, I needed to be there. I needed to have my body and my voice count towards, you know, amplifying the voices of people who really need to be heard and should have been heard a long, long time ago, but really need to be heard right now. And just please don't ignore those voices right now. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it made medium sense.